Hey YouTube, it's your girl Duchess back with more YSL coverage. Y'all, I've been on pins and needles, and today was a real tearjerker. I'm still clearing out my nose, but let's get into our summary of today's events. So, we got our first plea deal in the YSL RICO trial that just went off the rails last week. Quamarvious Nichols was our first, and let's get into it.
And then please.
Yes.
All right. State spell your first last name for the course, and I went to the mic, please, sir.
Quamarvious Nichols. Quamarvious. Last name Nichols. Nichols.
All right.
So he went a little too fast for the court reporter, and he needed to redo his swearing in. So just kind of pay attention to the gentle way that Harvey, his attorney, talks to him and gets him to redo that.
Okay. Do you want to do it again? All right. Slow down. Your name. Spell it for this young lady right here.
Okay, my name is Quamarvious Nichols. First name Quamarvious. My last name Nichols. Nichols.
And Mr. Nichols, are you the same person referred to as Quamarvious Nichols on indictment 22 SC 183572?
Yes.
All right, so let's get into what he is charged with. He is standing trial with Atlanta rapper Young Thug in the RICO, the YSL RICO trial. That has been going on for about 2 years now. So he is one of the co defendants in that trial, and he has pled out in recent mayhem of all the drama with the mistrial pieces that have gone on in this case. So let's hear about what he is indicted with in this trial.
Do you understand that in this indictment, you were initially charged with count one, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, which carries a sentence of 5 to 20 years. You were also charged with count 49 in this indictment, which is murder, which carries a sentence of life. You were charged with 2 counts of participation, 5, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon under Code Section 16-11-133, which each carry a sentence of 15 years consecutive to count 1. And then you were also charged with count 54, which is possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, which carries a sentence of 5 years consecutive to count 1. Do you understand that that's what you were initially charged with?
Yes.
Do you understand that you have the right to plead either guilty or not guilty to these charges? And if you plead not guilty or remain silent, you may receive a jury trial.
Yes.
All right, so those were the charges that he was indicted with in this trial. Let's get into the plea.
Have you had an opportunity to go over and review the waiver of rights form with your attorney?
Yes.
Do you waive formal reading of the indictment?
Yes.
Have you been advised of the minimum and maximum sentence for each charge that you are pleading to?
Yes.
Do you understand this is a negotiated plea of guilty, which means that the state will recommend to the court as to count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, a sentence of 20 years to serve 7 years in custody, balanced on probation?
Yes.
Do you understand that as a part of the negotiated agreement, the state will null, prosper, or dismiss count 49, which is the murder count, count 50, 51, which are the gang activity counts, count 53, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, count 54, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and count 65, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. Do you understand that is the negotiated agreement?
Yes.
All right, so that is the plea. And let's see if the judge agrees if she will impose impose a harsher sentence. So he pled down to get everything taken off except for the RICO charge. Let's keep going.
Do you understand that the court does not have to accept that recommendation?
Yes.
and the court can sentence you to the maximum on each charge and can run those charges consecutively or one after the other.
Yes.
Well, there's only one charge that a guilty plea is being entered into, so
Under my breath to that.
there's no other sentence to run anything consecutively with
Right.
regard to this plea. You understand that?
Yes.
Okay.
Did y'all catch that? How I may have a little secondhand PTSD of all the stage tricks, but how she was saying that everything would run consecutively as if he had pled guilty to all these things. And the judge, in usual fashion, entering a correction. So let's get into the sentencing.
You understand this plea may be used to enhance sentencing on other convictions in this jurisdiction as well as in other jurisdictions, including the federal courts.
Yes.
Do you understand if you are currently on probation or parole, your probation or parole may be revoked based on your entering a guilty plea today?
Yes.
That just the time period of anything like that would to file a direct
From today's date to file a habeas corpus petition challenging the voluntariness of this plea.
Yes.
that can challenge anything about the constitutionality of the plea. It's not limited to voluntariness. Understand?
Yes.
I love how the judge is making sure the state is including his rights in what he can and cannot do after this plea.
And Your Honor, if this case were to
Hang on just a second. You also have, so 4 years for that, to file a direct appeal. You have 30 days from the date of sentencing, which is going to be today. And you have until the end of this term of court to file a motion seeking to withdraw your guilty plea. That doesn't mean anything like that would be granted. You would have to establish facts that would warrant that. But that's just the time period is until the end of this term of court. Do you understand that as well?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Harvey, are y'all acknowledging a factual basis to the count one, the RICO count?
Okay, we are acknowledging a factual basis. There has already been evidence with regard to the July 3rd, 2017 drug event, the October 23rd, 2018 drug event. We categorically deny and contest any use of violence by Mr. Nichols. We don't agree to that underlying factual basis. We believe those two predicate acts that were committed by Mr. Nichols without any question are sufficient to meet the elements of the offense. The offense to which he's pleaded to, which is a RICO conspiracy. A RICO conspiracy requires proof that the defendant either conspire with another person to violate one of the substantive provisions of RICO, and that would be drug offenses, or personally endeavor, I believe that's what the language of the statute says, to violate one of the substantive provisions.
Well,
note what the Honorable Bruce Harvey is saying. We are acknowledging and pleading guilty to the minimum requirement to meet that statute. Don't add anything more into that. Don't give us, a whole buffet of BS. He didn't say that, y'all. That's my commentary. But he is being careful to be very specific into what they are pleading to, because this will go into the agreement. This is all being read into the court transcript, and that is very important. Shout out to Mr. Bruce Harvey for advocating for his client even down to the midnight hour. Let's keep going.
that's what the language of the statute says, but
Yes.
he is indicted in this indictment with conspiring, not with endeavoring.
That's correct. So we're talking about a conspiracy. We acknowledge the two events that he participated in. We categorically deny any other allegations other than those two events that are sufficient for a factual basis. We categorically deny that we participated in any way in the unfortunate death of Mr. Drinks. We categorically deny any other charges to which we are, substantive charges to which we are not entering a plea, and that includes gang charges. This is a plea. solely to a conspiracy to violate the RICO Act. So that, but yes, we acknowledge a factual basis to that extent, Your Honor.
Understood. All right, thank you.
And in true state fashion, they're going to argue back, honey. If they don't do anything else, they're going to counter, even when they're down bad. So we get a little lawyering in this. Y'all like that? We get a little lawyering in this. What are we doing? A plea deal. Don't you worry. Mr. Harvey got something for her.
You're right, we just have one additional thing to say.
Go ahead.
The factual basis regarding the nation YSL is that the evidence has shown and will continue to show that Mr. Nichols conspired with others to participate in Young Slime Life through a pattern of racketeering activity, and multiple defendants and unindicted co-conspirators have committed overt acts to further this conspiracy, including drug sales, aggravated assault, and murder, also including social media posts asserting the violent nature of and asserted dominance of Young Slime Life, also known as YSL. And that concludes our factual basis.
And again,
Now, why she tried to play on the Honorable Bruce Harvey's top, I don't know, but he got something. Let's keep going.
and once again, we again categorically deny those representations. And again, the only thing that is necessary to meet the factual evidence of a 1614-4C is proof that the defendant conspire with another person to violate one of the substantive provisions of RICO, and that is subsumed by the drug offenses that have already been proven in this case, and to which Mr. Nichols has previously pled.
All right, thank you. Understood.
And you're right, may I approach with the waiver of rights form?
Yes.
All right, while she's approaching, I'm gonna explain what I'm hearing. So it sounds like he's entered a plea for the RICO. The state is
All
trying
right,
to pin.
Mr. Harvey, have you reviewed with Mr. Nichols this plea of guilty and waiver of rights form, which the two of you have both?
I'm gonna pause for just a second before she get into the sentence, because the judge is going to either agree to what they propose or she could propose a harsher sentence. But it sounds like Mr. Harvey, man, I love me some Mr. Harvey. He is making sure that it is in that transcript and written in that they are denying any admission to any violent crimes. He's really only doing the drug related crimes in terms of this RICO. And so the state is trying to word it where all of the other things to make YSL be this big gang, committing murders and robbings and doing all of that piece. The key that I heard when he said nonviolent, that kind of pushes all of that out. And that drug piece, if Thug is continuing to fight this, I think that still can put distance between him and this defendant based on what yes, it's a RICO, but it's not really including all of the YSL stuff that they had as evidence in this case. All right. That's kind of my understanding. I want to see what the judge says too. And muting the mic and keeping going.
And Mr. Nichols, have you had sufficient time to consider this guilty plea that has been negotiated between the state and your attorneys, and to discuss anything you wanted to about that with your attorneys?
Yes.
All right. And you understand, I hope, I'm going to ask you, that it is your decision ultimately, obviously with the advice of your attorneys, but it's ultimately up to you individually to decide whether you want to enter this guilty plea or not. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. And you do want to enter this guilty plea?
Yes.
All right. And Mr. Harvey, have you advised Mr. Nichols of the alternatives if he does not ultimately go through with this guilty plea, and the potential benefits and drawbacks of all of the other options?
Yes,
All right.
very thoroughly, Judge.
All right. All right, Mr. Harvey, is there anything that the defense wants to add to the record?
Judge, other than the statement with regard to the underlying factual basis, I would point out for the court that when Mr. Nichols filled out his form, It says 29 plus. He is a birthday boy in a couple of days, and he will be 30. And at 30 years of age, he has a wife. He has got a 13-year-old daughter. He's got a 10-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son. His wife and sister, I believe, are here in the courtroom to support him. He, Mr. Nichols, was born and raised in Atlanta. And, we're at this point before I have even given my opening statement in this case.
Yes, sir.
I do want the court to know that Mr. Nichols' mother died in prison. His father was shot by the Atlanta police when he was 4 years old. And he was raised by friends and family in the Atlanta area. So he has come to this point in his life from a very humble beginning, and he has sought the support of friends in this courtroom and others in this courtroom. He is an intelligent young man who I believe has a future. Every day we do a word of the day. We put a new word into a sentence. And I think this is in his best interest. I know that there is, and I know this plea is negotiated, but it's a long downside from 7 to 20. So the courts will have jurisdiction over him for a period of time. So I asked the court, given who this young man is, and given our categorical denial of some of the factual basis, to accept the plea and sentence Mr. Nichols accordingly.
Y'all, I'm editing this and crying again. Shout out to Mr. Bruce Harvey. His emotions and advocating for his client. He did not have to be vulnerable in front of the judge. You could tell that he was getting emotional to hear that this baby's mother died in prison and his dad was shot by the Atlanta police at the age of 4 years old. He didn't have a chance to grow up in the hood and, you know, rely on your peers for support and whatever else that you need. I understand how our youth end up in this way. And this is just one guy's story. And I just appreciate this white man standing up and connecting with his client. I can tell that he truly cares about him. And I also feel like he even though it's a win, he wanted him to just really not have to serve any time. So I suspect he may still beat himself up a little bit because he will have to serve some time. And I just appreciate him connecting and understanding the struggle and not holding it against him. I believe that everyone deserves an opportunity to rewrite their history. And I just appreciated him standing up for him and just caring because he didn't have to. The work is already done for the most part. Child, I was crying in the live. You hear me? A big old waterhead. But I just wanted to give Mr. Bruce Harvey just another shout out. I'm going to miss him fighting and advocating and going at the judge. I'm going to do some clips for him. But gosh, such an emotional day. Let's keep going. Let's get to her sentencing.
Mr. Nichols, is there anything that you want to say?
No, ma'am.
All right. All right, I find there to be a factual basis for the guilty plea to the RICO count one of the indictment, that being a conspiracy to acquire control or interest in money and personal property through a pattern of racketeering activity. And that is the only count that guilty plea is being entered for. The remaining counts of this indictment as against Mr. Nichols are being null pros by the state as a part of this indictment. I find, having heard the evidence up to the point of trial right now, that there is evidence of at least one overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy, and that there is evidence that would fall within the required statute of limitations to establish this RICO conspiracy count. One of the things that we as judges are instructed by our Uniform Superior Court rules to do when we are considering whether to accept a guilty plea and whether to accept a negotiated sentence, and this is a negotiated sentence in this case, is to take into account whether giving leniency in sentencing is going to aid in ensuring promptness and certainty, or at least more promptness and more certainty with regard to corrective measures, whether the defendant, and in this case, the defendant has acknowledged guilt and is accepting responsibility for his guilt of the RICO count, and whether accepting the plea will aid in avoiding further delays, not just with regard to this case, but with regard to the entirety of our system here in Fulton County. And this plea does go towards doing all of those things. I am going to accept the plea as negotiated and sentence in accord with the negotiated recommendation. As I said before, find there to be a factual basis for count one of the plea. I find the plea to have been freely, knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily entered into by Mr. Nichols, with an understanding of the consequences of doing that. And the sentence on count one is the sentence that has been negotiated of 20 years to serve 7, with the balance of those years to be served on probation. With regard to the time that you are on probation, you need to stay out of all kinds of criminal trouble. Make this a birthday present to yourself and to your children and to your wife and family, that you will leave from here today and leave whatever you used to do behind you, and take the next few years. You know, you're going to have some years that are still to be served on this. You'll have credit for the time you've already served, but you're still going to be facing some incarceration time. But after that, you are going to be out, and you, I believe Mr. Harvey is correct, can be a productive member of society. And this is an opportunity for you to do that, and for you to put your past behind you, the bad parts of it, and continue and make your children proud of you, and set a good example for them, an example that I guess unfortunately you were not lucky enough to have throughout the entirety of your childhood with your parents. I'm sorry about that, but you can be the kind of parent that you ought to be to your children. So I am going to impose that sentence, and I am going to wish you luck and good fortune as you go forth from here. So I think that unless there's anything else from either party, that will conclude these proceedings, and y'all can go ahead and take him into custody.
All right. Shout out to the Honorable Judge Whitaker for having some compassion, acknowledging the pain and challenges of this young man with his parenting and what happened with that, and encouraging him to focus on his journey as a parent and setting an example for his family. I so appreciate her just honoring the negotiations and being as lenient as possible. It could have been a lot worse. And what this means is he will serve about 3 years, maybe less, if good behavior is on the table, incarcerated. And like he has a total 7 to serve, but he has been incarcerated for over 2 just during this trial. So he gets a 2-for-1. So for every day that he served as state fighting for his innocence, he gets 2 days credit. So that means that he's already served 4 years off of his sentence, and he'll have to serve the remaining of the 7, which will be about 3. And then he'll have 13 years on probation. I am in no way celebrating any victim that has been a part of this case. I want to make it very clear that I am celebrating the righting of some of the wrongs with the state and how our young men are treated, and the opportunity to rehabilitate himself. This is the way that it's supposed to be, if anything. And the fact that he had a good defense attorney that was willing to fight for him, it just means so much to me. It gives me hope for the rest of the young men that could be facing these circumstances. I know that there is a lot that has gone on in Atlanta with the community and everything that has happened, but I am for doing the right thing. And there's victims on both sides. I'm going to stand on that. I want to know what you guys think about this case. The attorney that's hugging him, she is part of the defense team. She is the one that immediately got in on this mistrial. And when the judge asked her point blank, "Do you want one?" And she was like, "Yes." And so this is where we are. Um, Again, I'm just so happy that his children have the opportunity to have their dad, and that there is opportunity for whatever trauma that he's gone through. There's opportunity for him to right his wrongs. We do not have the power to judge people. It is not our place. I stand on that as well. And so I'm just happy for them, and I'm so proud of Mr. Harvey, and I'm gonna miss him in his trial. Child, honey, an emotional mess, but it was a good day. I'm so glad I caught it. I appreciate everyone that joined the live today, and thank you all for listening. Let me know what you think. I would love to know what you think about this, and it's a great topic of discussion for sure. And this is just one man's story, but there's so many like him that doesn't have an ending in this way. So yeah, YSLRICO, baby. Mistrial, no mistrial, but we got a good plea. In my opinion, it's your girl Duchess, and I'm out.